for what he says is an amicable divorce from the European Union. Well, Mr Farage joins me now from Exeter. Very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Just explain to us what you mean by an amicable divorce from Europe.
Well, we don't want to be part of a political union. You know, my parents' generation had a referendum on whether we stayed part of a common market, and what we've got is an organisation that costs us a fortune and now makes 75% of our laws. We don't want that. We want to be a self-governing country, so we divorce ourselves from the Union and we have a simple free trade agreement and we work together as good neighbours with Europe. And actually, we don't just want that for ourselves, we want this for the rest of Europe too.
So you want the rest of Europe to leave Europe?
Yeah, you know, that flag, that anthem and Herman Van Rompuy, what have they got to do with Europe? They've hijacked Europe. They say they're Europe. I don't believe they are. I think Europe is about different nation-states with their own languages, wines and cheeses. It's the most fantastic continent on earth because of its diversity. The last thing anybody wants is for it all to be bundled up together, governed by grey, unelected bureaucrats in Brussels, who now, if you look at what's been happening in Cyprus in the last week, behave like bully boy dictators. The whole European project is not working, and the Eurosceptic views that I've given this morning are now ones that you will hear the length and breadth of the European Union. You
mentioned Cyprus there, and given that the latest we're hearing is a possible 25% tax on higher savers, people with a lot of money in the banks, what do you make of that?
I think it's theft. There's no other way of putting it, is it? I mean, they are so desperate to keep the failing euro propped up that they're prepared now to resort to theft. And I think there is an important UK angle on this. There are 750,000 British people that own properties or live in Spain, and my message to them is get your money out of Spain while you can, because they'll come for you next.
You mentioned in your speech about the other parties and what they were in politics for, and you said you should be in politics for principle, which I'm assuming you believe you are.
Well, I was in business, I wasn't in politics, I never intended to be in politics, but I saw three parties in my country effectively merge into one big Social Democrat party, happy to hand over control of this nation to the Brussels bureaucracy. I thought that was important, and I'm in politics for one simple principle. I believe the best people to govern Britain are the British people themselves. I believe we've been lied to consistently by generations of politicians about the true nature of the European Union, and I want to get my country back. I want us to be free, and I want my 4 children to grow up in a country that they can call their own.
Let's look at the Eastleigh by-election. A success for your party. How much was the protest vote?
Well, I mean, I met people the day after Eastleigh, and of course it's true that there are some people out there that want to stick 2 fingers up to the entire career, professional, political class of college kids that now run this country. I understand that. But most people were voting for us in Eastleigh because they looked at issues like jobs and housing, which were uppermost in their minds in that town, and they agreed with us that uncontrolled immigration, the pressure of numbers, has made getting jobs for unskilled youngsters very much harder, has made getting on the housing ladder, in many cases, virtually impossible. There is a chronic shortage of social housing too. And when you say to them, well, are you happy that next January we're going to open up the door to 29 million really poor people from Romania and Bulgaria? The answer is no, enough's enough, it's time we did something about this. And the only party advocating that we have a managed migration policy into Britain, that we only take people here who've got skills and something to contribute, is UKIP, because the other 3 are committed to membership of the European Union, which means total free movement of peoples. Now, you know, when the European Union were all relatively wealthy countries, that didn't matter, but now we've let very poor countries in, it really does.
I wanted to turn to press regulation, which your party was not part of considering this deal and agreeing to it. Just tell me why.
Well, I mean, I'm the first to say that there were some awful abuses of the tabloid press, and indeed, you know, my name's on the list. I'm one of the people that was hacked, and I wasn't very happy about it, or by what was written about me. But the point is that what the newspapers did was illegal. There was already legislation covering that, and whilst I know that it's time-consuming and slightly financially expensive, we have had legal recourse over this. Now, I think the idea of perhaps having a royal charter, of trying to make the journalistic profession a bit prouder of who they are and what they do. That's a good idea, but I think if we have state regulation of the press, we will set up some great big quango, it'll cost a fortune, and it'll be used by politicians to try and suppress genuine debate in the media. I mean, was it a good thing or a bad thing that the Daily Telegraph came out with MPs' expenses? I would argue that it was a very good thing, and it was something the British public needed to know. And I would also argue, as somebody that's travelled all over the world, I genuinely believe we have the best free press in the world, and I don't want to see that damaged. And all the while we have legislation that protects us if they break the law. That, I think, is the right balance. I do not want freedom of speech suppressed.
You had dinner apparently with Rupert Murdoch recently. Would that not be seen as maybe perhaps getting a bit too close to the press?
Well, I think if you work in a business like politics, you meet all sorts of people. And I was very happy to be invited to have dinner with Rupert Murdoch. He's a remarkable guy, you know, 82 years old, running a global media empire. He's an impressive guy. And I guess one of the most interesting things about politics is you do meet people like that.
And did he come on board for your message?
The conversation with Mr. Murdoch is entirely private, and I'm not going to share it with you or with anybody else. But I don't think it's a great secret that Mr. Murdoch takes very much the same view, particularly on despoiling our landscapes and seascapes with these monstrous, useless wind turbines. So, of course, there were some points of agreement.
OK, Nigel Farage, thank you.